He was the invincible whiz kid of the chess world.
He's one of the best players that ever lived. Something happens once every 100 years.
He beat practically every player of importance.
Bobby Fischer was the greatest chess machine ever invented.
The child prodigy from the heart of Brooklyn who became a Cold War icon and, in the process, toppled an empire.
Chess was his god.
He looked more like a movie star than a chess player. Like Muhammad Ali in boxing, like Tiger Woods in golf. Bobby transcended his own sport and became a cultural icon.
I like some kind of a permanent celebrity thing, you know. I don't have that yet.
But his reclusive behavior and his eccentric ideologies made him as reviled as he was revered.
His anti-communism somehow transmuted into an anti-Americanism.
I want to see the U.S. wiped out.
He is truly the pride and sorrow of American chess.
Once a symbol of the American spirit, eventually he became an international fugitive. The Cold War was at its peak in 1972. Around the world, the East and the West were engaged in a never-ending chess game with third world dictatorships, fledgling democracies, and Marxist revolutionaries, all in an effort to secure their interests abroad. But on the frozen volcanic island of Iceland, in the picturesque capital of Reykjavik, preparations were being made for another showdown, the World Chess Championship.
There were well over 300 reporters from all over, and I'd never seen something grab a city so the city couldn't move for 14 weeks.
The Reykjavik event was no mere chess match. It was shaping up to be a battle of world superpowers, a showdown between warring political ideologies.
It wasn't two guys pushing some pieces around a 60-foot square chessboard. It was an international confrontational event.
This was of tremendous interest because of the Cold War, because of the United States versus the Soviet Union.
On one side of the chess table was the affable Russian, Boris Spassky, world champion and product of the Soviet chess machine.
Boris Spassky at that time was the champion of the world, and Russia dominated world chess.
Spassky was not really playing alone. He was really playing with the weight and the prestige and the acumen of the entire Soviet Union.
Most of the rest of the world were basically amateurs, but behind the Iron Curtain, they were all professionals.
Across from Spassky was the mercurial American Bobby Fischer, whose enormous ego and off-the-wall demands nearly derailed the entire event.
Nobody knew whether he was actually going to play Boris Spassky, the existing champion.
Once Spassky and Fischer sat down at the chess table, though, the Cold War stalemate of deterrence gave way to an all-out battle between two grandmasters and delivered to the free world a most unlikely hero.
There was something very lovely about the way he moved pieces. It was almost like he was playing a piano or playing a harp.
America was in desperate need of something to cheer them up, and Bobby provided that in spades.
Robert James Fischer arrived on the 9th of March 1943 in Chicago, Illinois. He was brought up by his mother, Regina, a brilliant Jewish American of Russian ancestry.
She was a very intelligent woman, extremely bright, and quite aggressive.
By the time Regina moved the family to the old Italian section of Brooklyn, her son's genius was apparent.
Truly, he had this eidetic memory for not only for chess positions, but for languages as well. And he knows a number of languages, by the way, about 5 or 6, just like his mom.
But being a genius didn't prevent Bobby from being a normal New York kid, at least not at first.
He was a wonderful little boy. And I used to enjoy taking him and my middle son, Mitchell, to the Rangers hockey games. Oh, they loved it.
But all that changed when his mother bought him his first chess set. Bobby was instantly hooked.
I was always pretty serious about it, you know. Chess and me, you know, it's hard to take them apart, you know. Just like my alter ego, you know.
So worried was his mother by his obsession with chess that she took him to see a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist said there were worse things in the world to be obsessed by than chess. And from that time, Bobby Fischer's chess was life, and his life was chess.
Bobby joined the prestigious Manhattan Chess Club, where he could play against other up-and-coming chess enthusiasts.
He was a nice kid. He was really, really nice. Of course, we shared the same hobby and the same interests, so, and we got along very well.
Bobby used to always take me by the trousers and say, "Wanna have a game? Wanna have a game?" That was his expression.
Like many adolescent boys, Bobby was embarrassed by his mother.
I think he also felt somewhat dominated by his mother. She would show up at tournaments and meetings, and it embarrassed him. He wanted to go to the chess club, and he wanted to go to the tournament and be a man and be himself, and he didn't want his mom always hanging around in the shadows.
When it came to chess, Bobby's play was anything but adolescent.
The idea began to develop that I was getting pretty good when I was about 11. I started to feel pretty good.
By the time he was 12, he was going head-to-head against some of America's greatest players.
Bobby Fischer was just a promising young boy. I expected to crush him, and I did. It was the first and last time I ever beat him.
Bobby was so talented that a good friend of mine, a very famous grandmaster, Miguel Najdorf, from Argentina, used to say that Bobby can do no wrong. He says he can throw the pieces up in the air and they fall on the right squares.
By 1956, chess insiders worldwide had heard of the 13-year-old Brooklyn wunderkind. Bobby began going on exhibition tours, taking on dozens of players.
I tried to discern how far ahead he was looking, and he was looking sometimes 6 or 7 moves ahead, and sometimes even more than that, whereas his opponents were looking maybe 2 or 3 moves ahead.
He had special gifts, the geometry of the brain to play the game. You could see moves ahead. But I think, as in lots of other activities, it was determination and love for the game.
In July of 1956, Bobby entered and won the U.S. Junior Chess Championship.
As people say, it was magic.
At 13, Bobby was the youngest junior champion of all time and was becoming a celebrity beyond the tightly knit world of chess. Bobby's chess star might have been on the rise, but his performance in the classroom yielded less than stellar reviews.
Bobby did not like high school. He felt like it didn't offer him anything. He was, as many bright children are, bored with what he was learning. He was good in languages. But other than that, he really didn't want to go to school. He wanted to stay home and play chess.
And while other boys his age were out playing stickball, Bobby was hunched over the table studying the moves of the great Soviet masters.
Bobby's sole interest was chess, and that would be above everything else. That would be ahead of social relationships, that would be ahead of girls, that would be ahead of school, education. It was chess, chess, and chess.
But Bobby's passion for chess would lead to problems far beyond the classroom or the dating scene. In fact, his obsession with the game would soon become his biggest stumbling block on the path to success. For the better part of 3 decades, the chess world was dominated by the grandmasters of the Soviet Union, each a product of the well-oiled machine known as the USSR Chess Federation.
For the Soviet Union, chess, of course, was a political sport because all sport was political in the Soviet Union. And indeed, they saw it as proof that the Soviet system worked.
But in the late 1950s, it wasn't a Russian grandmaster that had captivated the chess world's attention. It was Brooklyn boy Bobby Fischer, who in 1956 had become the youngest U.S. junior champion ever. The next year, Fischer was offered a chance to play in the United States Chess Championship. He was 14 years old. In a brilliant display of skill, Bobby cruised through the tournament, eliminating several of America's most revered grandmasters.
I thought Reshevsky was